If you're hoping that the Prague real estate market is finally cooling down in 2026, what I'm seeing so far suggests the opposite. At the end of Q1, the market is extremely competitive, especially the smaller apartments where the prices are still rising. Let me show you 3 recent deals from my clients that illustrate what's really happening in the Prague property market right now. So a few weeks ago, one of my clients almost didn't buy an apartment in Vinohrady because we both initially felt the price was quite high. The apartment is about 55 square meters and it's located very close to the Žižkov metro station, which is one of the most desirable areas in Prague. The price was 13 million crowns, which comes out to roughly 236,000 crowns per square meter. Now that felt quite aggressive even for Vinohrady. On the other hand, the building is being completely renovated, the apartment will be newly finished, and the overall standard of the project is clearly above average. We try negotiating the price with the developer at least a little bit down. Sometimes that is possible with larger or more expensive apartments, but in this case there was absolutely no flexibility. It was basically a take it or leave it situation. In the end, my client decided to secure the apartment, so it's currently being finished and he should be taking it over later this year. And interestingly enough, shortly after we reserved the apartment, the developer actually increased the prices of comparable units in the building by about 600,000 crowns. So in the segment of premium locations with high quality renovations, developers still feel very confident about their pricing. Before securing this apartment, we actually visited many other properties, and most of them were either significantly worse condition, in a less attractive location, or they were even more expensive. For example, one large developer is currently pre-selling the Vinohradská 8 project, which is a very premium development in a very premium location. But the prices there are already around 300,000 crowns per square meter for an average size apartment. That clearly shows that there is still strong upward pressure in the premium segment of the Prague market. Now, the second case shows a slightly different aspect of the market. Another client of mine recently bought a studio apartment in Žižkov for about 8 million crowns, and he is already living there now. To be completely transparent, in this case, I actually recommended that he should not probably buy the apartment, because in my opinion, the price was above the market and the transaction itself was a little bit unusual. But the client really liked the apartment. The building is very high quality, the location is excellent, very close to the University of Economics, and he plans to live there long term. So in the end, he decided that paying a premium for something he really liked was acceptable. And interestingly, since we initiated the transaction in December last year, prices in the area already started catching up with what he paid. Again, shows how strong demand still is for smaller apartments in good conditions. Now, the third example probably illustrates the current Prague market the best. A client of mine was looking for a studio apartment under 7 million crowns with a good connection to the city center, which is by far the most competitive segment of the Prague market right now. She also needed mortgage financing, which made the situation even more difficult for her because she was often competing with investors who could buy with cash. Before she contacted me, she was actually getting quite desperate. And in several cases, the apartments she inquired about were already sold by the time she received a response. So when we started working together, we knew we would need to react very quickly whenever a good opportunity appeared. And that's exactly what eventually happened. I came across an apartment in the Tesla Hloubětín project for about 6.2 million crowns, being sold by a direct seller, and my first impression was that the price was below the current market level. So I called the seller immediately and scheduled a viewing for the next day. And during the viewing, we actually reserved the apartment on the spot. However, the following day, the seller received additional interest and actually broke the verbal reservation, which unfortunately can sometimes happen in the current market. So we had to renegotiate and increase our offer. But fortunately, in the end, we were successful and my client secured the apartment. She is currently arranging the mortgage financing and should be moving into the apartment in about 2 months. And even though we had to increase the price slightly, we are both still very happy that we managed to secure the property. So as you can see, for foreign buyers, navigating the Prague market can sometimes be even more challenging. So I think these 3 examples sum up the current situation on the market pretty well. From what I'm currently seeing, the market is still very strongly a seller's market, especially for apartments under 10 million crowns. If an apartment is priced well, it often disappears from the market basically immediately. And sometimes sellers even increase the price if they receive a lot of interest. So what does this mean for buyers right now? My general advice in the current market is to be very cautious, especially if you're buying as an investment. Right now in Prague, the rent to mortgage ratio simply doesn't make any sense to me. In many cases, the mortgage payment is significantly higher than what the property could realistically generate in rent. So if you're just moving to Prague and considering buying property, my recommendation would be actually to rent first. Get to know the city a little bit, understand which neighborhoods you like, and then think about buying later. And if you're buying property as an investment, you really need to do your homework carefully right now. With most properties today, if you're financing the purchase with a mortgage, you will likely have very negative cash flow. And even if you're buying cash, you're often looking at something below 4% return, which honestly seems ridiculous to me. At that point, you could achieve a similar return simply by keeping the money in the bank. On the other hand, if you're buying a property to live in yourself, the situation is a little different. No one can really predict where the market will go in the coming months or years, so in that sense, there is never a perfect moment to buy. Just keep in mind that in many cases, your monthly mortgage payment may easily be 50% higher than what you would currently pay in rent for a similar apartment. And if you do decide to buy in the current market, the most important thing is to monitor the listings very closely and react quickly. Have your financing prepared, know exactly what you're looking for, and be ready to reserve the apartment quickly when the right opportunity appears. There is also a new mortgage regulation coming into force in April that will concern investment properties. This could potentially slow investor demand slightly, but it's still unclear how strong that effect will be, as the fundamental issue in Prague remains the same. There simply aren't enough apartments available relative to demand. So to summarize what I'm currently seeing in the Prague market. First, small apartments under 10 million crowns remain extremely competitive. Second, premium locations like Vinohrady are still achieving very high prices. And third, well-priced apartments can disappear from the market almost immediately. So at the moment, the market is still quite difficult for buyers and very good for sellers. And if you're currently searching for property in Prague and you feel like the good apartments disappear before you even get a chance to see them, you're definitely not the only one experiencing that. That's simply how the market works right now. And that's also exactly the situation where having someone actively monitoring the market can make a big difference. So if you'd like help navigating the property market, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to discuss your situation, whether you're buying, selling, or looking for property management. And if you find this content helpful, please subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.